Hey, welcome to the Hardwood Hustle. The champ is here, Bob Starkey, who is a longtime friend of ours and PGC. And, I think anybody that follows him, what a giver to the game he is. And with his hectic schedule, he decided he would be willing to jump on, and we are beyond excited to have him. We're going to talk in actually just two different episodes. And one, we're just going to talk about his great shares and learnings from winning the national championship this year. And in the second part, he had a tweet talking about scouting, and we're going to dive a little deeper into that, as we know coaches love to gain things that are going to help their team get an edge. So, Bob, welcome back.
Guys, great to be back. This is obviously one of my favorite podcasts right here. Whether I'm on it or whether I'm watching you guys share with other people, I'm really glad you had me on again.
Well, congratulations on the national championship. And I know we were in Greece actually watching, I think it was like maybe 1 a.m. or something when we were watching the game over there. Thank goodness y'all played on an afternoon. But it was fun to watch. We had a couple of big LSU fans there with us, and we were obviously pulling for you because of how good you are to the game and just what a great teacher you are and how much you help coaches. But let's just talk for a second. I mean, well, first of all, just it was a homecoming for you. I mean, so just give our listeners a little bit of the background on that and why it was extra special to you, and then we'll dive into some of the things that you learned and grew over the season.
Well, as a very young coach, I came here and took a job for Dale Brown on the men's side back in the late 80s. Matter of fact, my first year on staff was Shaquille O'Neal's freshman year. I like to tell everybody it's a package deal, but nobody believes that. But I was on Dale's staff for 13 years, and then Dale retired. And Sue Gunner, the legendary, iconic women's coach for LSU, said, "Hey, if you like living in Baton Rouge, why don't you come across the hall and work for me?" So I spent the next 12 years working on the women's side. So I had 25 years here. I invested at LSU, living in Baton Rouge, and being part of Louisiana culture. It was special for me. It was also a challenging time for our family. My wife battled with multiple sclerosis and breast cancer. And so this community enveloped her and helped us get through those things. So it was a very, very special place. And even as we went to other places and coached like Texas A&M and Auburn, we always found our way back here in the off season. My wife would actually come during the season and stay with her friends. So when Kim offered me an opportunity to come home, it meant an awful lot to both my wife and I to come back to LSU.
Yeah, and going to all those Final Fours, your first go around, and then finally winning it. And I know, as we talked before we started recording, you used to have some time to breathe a little bit, but with the transfer portal and everything, you jumped right in. But has there been any immediate reflection where you say, man, I whether it's a learning or just just a reflection on the year and winning it all and what that means to you. Yeah, speak on that if you don't mind.
Well, this is just me personally speaking. There may be a brief moment where I'm out in my backyard with a nice cigar and I'll look back and think about the season in positive terms. But we've actually started breaking down film on our season last year, looking for ways to improve. Especially individually, this will be a great time for us. Matter of fact, one of our freshmen, Flajay Johnson, will be coming in next week, and we'll start breaking down her game on film to look at areas where she can improve upon. What's been special is the way we've been received in the community. When we came back, we landed on the plane, went straight to the arena, and there were about 7,000 people waiting for us. 2 nights later, we had a parade in Baton Rouge, had over 75,000 people at it. And Coach Mulkey mentions this over and over again. This was a victory for everybody. I mean, I'm sure everybody feels this way, but there's something special about championships in the LSU community. And this was the first one in men's or women's basketball. And to see all the faces and joy and happiness for so many, it's a pretty fulfilling thing that you get as a coach. You're happy for your program, you're happy for your players, but when you can share it with your community. The other thing was our alumni base. Kim has done an amazing job here in 2 years of bringing our alumni back within the fold of our program. And one of the really neat things that I thought was just absolutely special. First of all, we had alumni through every stop in the NCAA tournament. They traveled with us, had a ton in Dallas. But in our victory parade, she made sure that the alumni had their own float. So we had 60 former players that jammed in one float that was part of our championship parade, because she wanted to make sure that they knew that they had planted those seeds. So those are the things I think that kind of hit with you. But, you guys mentioned it, the portal, and if you're sitting around thinking about yesterday, then, you're going to be behind in tomorrow.
Yeah. What was the special sauce here, Bob? Like if you look back on the season, and a lot of things have to go right and be done right for you to win a championship. And so, I think coaches are always trying to look for the footprints left in success. And so when you reflect on this season, what were a couple of key things, key elements of this team that allowed you to win a championship?
The first thing that comes right to the forefront for me was the intentional and deliberate approach that Coach Mulkey took to practice every single day. I've been doing this for 43 years, have worked for some outstanding coaches, have went and observed some outstanding coaches, and Coach Mulkey's the best practice coach I've been around. Everything from the organization of what needs to be done that day, the length of practice. She knew the buttons to push each and every day. Her language at practice, and by that I'm talking about the phrases she uses when she stops, the seeds she plants. She's just absolutely amazing in practice. And I think we all know that practice is an important part of the process, but that's where she excels. That's the thing that she does that is really, really special. And then the second part of that was the buy-in from the players. And we are absolutely in a really, really different era in those terms. Sometimes, back in the day, it might take a year or two to get the players to buy in. And then you always saw those teams come to the cream would rise when a team was full of juniors and seniors. Well, we had 9 new players this year. And that's going to be the norm from here out, I think, at least on our level. And the ability of a coach to bring that group of players together in a short amount of time, I think is critical to success. The other thing, some of the things that I'm noticing is if this is the blueprint that we have now, where, we had portal kids, we had a junior college kid, we had 3 freshmen. I mean, we had a blend of all those things that you have. I think, number one, you have to be flexible in the way you coach and teach. I think you have to think about your system of play. For instance, when I was at LSU, we made those runs to the Final Fours. We were a pure motion offense team. The old Bob Knight, we ran some 4-out, 1-in. We ran some post exchange. We ran some triangle. And it was all based on reading and cutting and all that. And it might take a player a year to 2 years before they would really become a good motion player. Now you have to think a little bit in terms of what can I teach offensively that will bring success to the floor, but won't take a year for kids to pick up on it. So, and I think Kim thinks of all those. She's an incredible blend of an old school coach that believes in fundamental play. Every day she's preaching, taking care of the basketball, rebounding. Big believer in the paint game. She wants post touches. That's a hard thing to find, somebody who still believes in sticking somebody on the block and making them apart and just playing good, solid defense. But within that, she's very flexible about the concept she introduces and how she teaches. And I know that's kind of a long-winded answer, but I was just absolutely blown away every day as a student of the game myself and going to practice and watching her operate.
That's so good. And, we talk a lot, Bob, about the art and the science of coaching. And it sounds like she's really good at knowing the science, like what drills need to be run to get this defensive rotation down, what drills need to be run to make this offensive concept or action better, but also the art of maybe we should shorten practice. Ooh, maybe I need to pull this girl aside and speak some confidence into her. Maybe I need to challenge this girl who got a little too comfortable. There's there's a yin and a yang, right? Be demanding, but also compassionate. And I'm fascinated by the great ones who know how to do it. Some of it's innate, and then some of it's probably just, very intentional leadership. So I'd love to hear, like, what makes Kim so great at that art of leading young people?
Well, I think the obvious answer is you're looking at an outstanding point guard. I mean, she's one of the game's best point guards. She's had that DNA to lead from back in her days in Louisiana Tech. And, I think a big part of leadership is feel. I'll tell you guys a story that nobody's told yet. The season is a grind. It's always a grind. And but I do think there's a little bit more to it now. With social media, I think that pulls on kids. The NIL stuff that we deal with, that pulls on kids, and you just have to know it's not as much. Are they physically fresh as are they mentally fresh? And I just think freshness is really big coming down the stretch. But we get to the NCAA tournament, and we play Hawaii in the first round and win, and we're getting ready to play a really good Michigan team. Really worried because they got 4 out. They're really good defensively. They're very physical. They're very well coached. And when you got 1 day of prep, and we come in, and some of the kids are moaning and groaning a little bit that they're tired. Well, the easy thing there would be say, okay, guys, we're tired. Let's shorten practice. But on that particular day, Kim said, really? We're in the NCAA tournament. You're tired? I tell you what, let's just take it to the house. You don't want to practice today? I tell you what, take it to the house. And if you don't feel like playing tomorrow, you're getting ready to get about 6 months of rest. So let's get out. She threw him out of practice. And so, first, oh, no, we're fine. No, your minds aren't here. Your heart's not here. You're not wasting my time. I'm not wasting your time. And so we send him to the locker room. The next day, we come back for walkthrough, and almost the same thing. And we go through a couple things that we needed to do, and then Kim said, "I still not feeling you guys. Let's just take it to the house. We got about 10, 15 minutes in. We defend their inbounds play. We're fine." And at that, our staff walked off. And this whole time I'm telling you this, Kim knew exactly what was going to happen. So we get up into the coach's locker room in the PMAC where there's a camera over the gym, and the team proceeded to do the next 40 minutes how we normally would do in terms of their shooting progression, in terms of defending certain things, which showed us that they did indeed know their scouting report. And we came out that night and beat a really good Michigan team by about 25. But she just has a pulse on what the team needs at that particular time. I told somebody the other day that something that impresses me. She yells compliments. I mean, she gets so excited when a player or a team does something that she knows is critical for growth or success. I mean, she goes nuts. Now, she's going to be intense on the corrections as well, but her volume is higher when she's complimenting the kid or the team. And I just think in today's age, I think that's really, really, really important.
Yeah, that is really special. And what gets celebrated gets repeated, and it's saying it like that. And I think your players can feel that, like your joy for them succeeding, your joy for them doing well. And everybody loves to be celebrated, and I think it's an art to figure out how to correct them, but everybody loves to get celebrated. When you use that tone that we talk about all the time, the tone matters and that energy matters. So that's really powerful. Bob, you said a second ago, I want to dive deeper into this because I think it's a pain point for coaches. But you talked about the organization of practice and how good it is and how impressed you were with practice. Coaches sit there, and I think we look at like this million things we got to do. We got to be better in transition defense. We got to be better at this. We got to be better at passing. We got to be better at whatever it is. There's so many things. And one of the hardest things to do for a coach is to actually decide where to land on what are we going to do in practice. So as a staff, how do you go about that? How do you make the most important thing so that you're not majoring in the minors?
Well, you got to have an order of priority. There's absolutely no question about it. Like we have a post feed series that we're going to do every day. And there's a lot of different actions that we do have as part of our warm up part of practice, where we're feeding the post. We have defense on the post. We're going to change how we defend the post from day to day. Sometimes depend on scouts. Sometimes we just want to work on something. We'll have defense on the passers. We'll relocate out of it because that is a big part of Kim's offense. I wouldn't suggest that every coach go, oh, well, let's put that feed that. Well, if you're not a post, that's not what you need to do. But we have a list of about 4 or 5 things that we're going to do every day. Like we're going to defend the basketball every day. We're going 1-on-1 or 2-on-2. We're going to defend the ball every day. We're going to convert every day. Conversions got whether it's offense to defense or defense to offense. Probably more than any other coach I've been around, we shoot the ball a ton. Every program I've ever been around, we always sit around and said, man, I wish we could find more time for shooting. We shoot here. Shooting is important here. But I think as a coach, you have to sit down and think what is important for me and the way I play within my system, my philosophy. And those are the things I've got to work on daily. And I think you need to have these are what we do daily. And then there's always other things that you work on based on preparation or improvement upon your team. But you got to have the core things that mean a lot to, I think it was Dick Bennett said, be good at the things that you do a lot.
Yeah, that's so good. And, I want to go back to when TJ alluded, we were watching this game in Greece, Bob, and I think of coaching maybe, and we talk about some too, like there's practice coaching, which you just spoke on. There's game coaching. There might even be a third, which is maybe like locker room / office / restaurant coaching, relationship. But in that game against Iowa, national championship, and I haven't seen this spoken to, there was a timeout that y'all called when I think Caitlin Clark came down that left sideline and pulled up from deep. But that's Caitlin Clark, right? And I think Mulkey, Kim called the timeout, and it looked like she lit into him, like the scouting report wasn't being followed in that moment, and they needed to be ignited a little bit. It's like, wake up, shake the trees here. Is that what happened? And maybe just speak bigger picture to that specific, and then bigger, like the importance of those in-game adjustments or in-game challenges. Even Doc Rivers, they talked about him challenging the 76ers the other night, and it ignited a big run for them. So I'd love to hear more about that moment.
I do think Kim's obviously an excellent game coach, and she has I've seen her call some amazing timeouts. I know that sounds kind of crazy. I've seen us come out of a second half and 45 seconds into the half, she's called a timeout. Because there's something that had to be gotten across at that time before either we fell further behind or we let somebody cut into our lead a little bit more. The biggest thing that we wanted to do with Clark, we wanted to keep her in front of us, but you got to pick her up high. You this is not a kid you pick up at the arc. Ironically, one of the things I talked about on a Zoom with a bunch of coaches the other day is within our scout, what we found out is that when Iowa wins, Clark averages 27 points a game. When Iowa loses, Clark averages 30 points a game. So guess what, guys? Clark's going to get her points. Now, the other part of that was when Iowa wins, they get 42 points in the paint. When they lose, it was like 28. Now, how are they getting the points in the paint? Clark's getting to the paint. They're feeding the post. They're back cutting you. So our game plan was to pick Clark up, let her get her shots over top of us. Don't let her get to the rim. Don't let her get to the free throw line and take the paint away. And that's what we did. I think we held them to maybe like 26, 27 paint points. Clark got hers. Guys, I'm going to tell you what. I've never defended anybody on the college game like Clark. I mean, she's a phenomenal player, and we talk about her scoring, but she led the country in assists. She has an absolute phenomenal feel for when she has the shot, when she has to drive, and where her teammates are when she needs to pass the ball. So we just tried. We weren't trying to shut her out. We tried to double her on a couple of ball screens, but the biggest part of that was let's take the paint away. Let's live with some outside shots, and then let's make them guard us on the other end. Which I thought we were fairly effective.
Bob, I got a big picture question for you. what wins? You've been doing this for a long time, and I know there's a lot of ways to skin that cat. You know what I mean? I know we've all seen different styles of play win. Um, we've seen it win at different levels. There's no shortage of information out there in basketball. Like to do this off an offense, to do that on defense. But a lot of times, I think it just comes down to a coach that knows how they want to win, and you have experienced and seen just about everything out there. What are the things you hold most dear to building a winning program?
Real quick, rebounding and taking care of the basketball. And the reason for that is those equate to possessions. If you're taking care of the basketball, you're going to get more shots. If you're going to the offensive boards, you're going to get more shots. If you're keeping the other team off the boards, that cuts down your shots. If you just, like when I was a young coach, I would look at box scores in the newspaper. And I can't tell you, if you get more shots, you win. I know that sounds really, really simple, but then how does that happen? It's because they take care of the ball and they keep the other team off the boards. That's how you get more shots. The other thing that has really grabbed my attention over the last 7 or 8 years is the ability to get to the free throw line and keep your opponents off. We're a big believer, and we want to make more free throws than the other team attempts, and that obviously that talks to offense and defense. I think that's a reason you see some pack line teams having some success defensively. Because they do a good job of keeping the other team off the boards or off the free throw line. And the last component, this is really old school, but I still believe the key to defensive and offensive success is owning the paint. I always talk to coaches all the time, you got to have a paint game. Now, if that's not low post play, maybe it's dribble penetration. Maybe it's transition you're getting to the paint. Maybe it's offensive boards. But you better have a plan and a process of teaching how you're going to score points in the paint. So I think if you take care of the ball, control the glass, find a way to get to the free throw line and get to the paint. And again, there's, as you mentioned, TJ, there's a lot of different ways to do that. But to me, those things they're old, tried and proven, and I don't think they've changed.
I'm glad you said rebounding, Bob. So I want to hear what you're teaching or y'all are teaching right now. Are you teaching traditional box outs, hit and get? Is it yes? I mean, what has changed since the late 80s to now? Are there some true and tried principles? Because you got a wide range. It's really changed a lot in what people teach in rebounding. What are y'all doing?
Well, we're kind of the Izzo philosophy. We're hit and hold when they're in the paint. We're hit and go when they're on the perimeter. And we're quick enough, I think, and athletic enough on the perimeter where we don't need to sit out there and get our butt and back into somebody. We just check them and go pursue the ball. I thought it was funny. I heard Rick Majerus, who is considered one of the all-time great rebounding coaches. At a clinic, somebody asked him for his rebounding drills. He said he's never did a single rebounding drill. He just demands players rebound when they're practicing. And I thought that was fascinating because I would have guys using the bubble, they're using the pads and all that. And Kim's along those lines. We'll do an occasional blockout drill, but other than that, we're just stressing the heck out of it whenever we're doing a drill or we're scrimmaging or something. She's constantly talking to him about it.
Yeah, Rick Majerus, man. Bob, you've learned from some great people. When you said Rick Majerus, My Life on a Napkin, what a great book, right? Like, yeah, just so good. I remember watching the old VHS and my wife coming in there and offense. Who's talking right there? Offense. It's like, I was like, what is offense? I was like, that's offense. He just has a little different tone to it. But yeah, I want to ask you this, because Don Meyer, Rick Majerus, Kim Mulkey, Blair, all the people that you've been around and you've learned from. When you think about advising coaches and you think about just young coaches coming up maybe in the game right now and some things that just the great ones, the threads that run through them, what are they? Like, what are some of those things that just imparting wisdom on young coaches? You're going to go after being the best you can be. What are some of those things that you've learned over time that just say, gosh, I would hold these couple things dear as you're on your journey?
I think the first one is always remember it's a relationship business. We're using basketball as a tool to help people grow. And I think, Don Meyer used to say it doesn't matter where you coach, it matters why you coach. And if you're coaching to help young people learn teamwork, discipline, work ethic, handling adversity, overcoming failure, then you're doing it for the right reasons. The second thing is to be very open-minded. Very open-minded. I've told this story before. The most important lesson I've ever learned in coaching. I was really young. My junior high coach, who I later worked for, was a Bob Knight guy. This is when I was growing up in West Virginia. I mean, we ran motion play man-to-man. We had the candy stripe warm-ups. I mean, we were little Hoosiers up there in West Virginia. And so he would take me as a young high school coach in the fall to Bloomington. We go watch Indiana practice for 2-3 days over a weekend every year. And it was phenomenal. It was phenomenal. The practice plan, you had pre-practice and you had part method, whole method, part method, whole method. The execution of practice, you had all these managers lined up with white T-shirts and red shorts with a towel over this shoulder, a ball under this arm. And you had 3 guys keeping stats and another guy filming. I just remember as a young coach thinking, everybody should have to come to Bloomington and learn how to coach. And about my 4th or 5th year, Indiana did not practice on a Sunday. So on the way back to West Virginia, we stopped by and watched Louisville practice. Legendary Denny Crum. They had one manager. He was wearing blue jeans and a heavy metal sweatshirt. They came out and they did 2-line layups for a little bit, and then they scrimmaged. And 2 weeks after that, Louisville went to Indiana and beat Indiana by 18 points. And the lesson I learned there is there's a lot of different ways to coach. Now, I want to preface that that's not necessarily a normal Louisville practice. Obviously, they do. I went back and watched a couple more. They do break down teach, but Indiana was motion, man-to-man, no switching, hard-nosed practice. Louisville was a little bit more laid back. They're UCLA high posts. They're switching every screen. They're pressing. Multiple national championships for both. There's just a lot of different ways to coach. And when you're young, if you're open-minded and you try and learn from everybody, you're just going to be a more well-rounded coach.
Yeah. Just like we always get just golden nuggets from you, Bob. And I know coaches are wishing that this would last longer. Well, good news. We're going to do a part 2 here real quick, and we're going to dive into scouting with Bob. So I'm going to wrap this one up and say, Bob, thanks again for joining us. Looking forward to this next episode with you on scouting. Hey, he is Sam. I am TJ. We are the Hardwood Hustle.
Thanks again for tuning into this episode of the Hardwood Hustle, where we believe in the value of a coach. Be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at Hardwood_Hustle to stay up to date on the latest episodes and share your thoughts with our coaching community. From the Hardwood Hustle team, thanks again. We can't wait to be with you again next week.